Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. Frank Maddox tugged at his collar, already regretting the tight necktie his wife had insisted on. The June heat in Missouri was unforgiving, and the outdoor wedding preparations of the Landry family estate made the air thick with humidity. Expensive decorations adorned every surface: white roses, crystal vases, champagne fountains, all screaming of old money that Frank had never had. "Stand up straight," Monica whispered, her manicured nails digging into his forearm. "My parents are watching." Frank straightened his posture, but kept his face neutral. 15 years of marriage had taught him when to pick his battles. Monica glided ahead of him, her designer dress flowing around her slender figure. People parted as she approached, offering air kisses and compliments. She was in her element here, queen, be returning to the hive. "Dad!" Andrew hung back, sticking close to Frank. At 14, the boy was already showing signs of Frank's height, but had his mother's dark hair. "Do I have to stay the whole time?" Frank placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Just through the ceremony and dinner. Then we can slip out early if you want." Andrew nodded, relief visible in his eyes. Frank noticed his son's gaze tracking Monica as she worked the crowd, air-kissing relatives and laughing too loudly at their jokes. The boy was perceptive, always watching, always quiet. "Frank, there you are." Noelle appeared, looking uncomfortable in her bridesmaid dress. Frank's younger sister had always been more at home in jeans and a t-shirt behind the bar she managed in town. "This place is suffocating. Rich people and their peacock displays." Frank cracked a smile. "Good to see you too, sis." Noelle pulled him aside, lowering her voice. "Listen, I need to tell you something." Her eyes darted toward the wedding party. "I don't like the way Monica's been looking at that groom's brother." Frank's jaw tightened. "What do you mean?" "Thatcher Garvin, Chase's brother." Noelle nodded toward a tall man in an expensive suit talking to the groom. "She's been disappearing whenever he does. Just watch her today, okay?" Frank didn't respond immediately. This wasn't the first time he'd heard whispers about Monica, but he'd never caught her in anything concrete. Still, the familiar knot formed in his stomach. "Dad!" Andrew had appeared at his side again. "I'm going to get some water." "Sure, son." Frank watched Andrew walk away, shoulders slightly hunched, trying to make himself smaller in the crowd of strangers. Noelle squeezed his arm. "That boy's growing up to be just like you. Quiet, watchful, smart as hell." Frank nodded. "He sees more than people think." The wedding coordinator began ushering people toward their seats. Monica reappeared, her smile bright, but not reaching her eyes. "There you are. We're seated at the front with the family. Let's go." As they walked, Frank noticed Monica's eyes trailing Thatcher Garvin. The man smiled slightly in her direction before turning away. Frank filed the observation away, another piece in a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to complete. The rehearsal dinner dragged on, speech after speech lauding the happy couple. Frank nursed his single glass of whiskey, watching the room. Monica had positioned herself near Chase's family, laughing at every joke, touching shoulders and arms with practiced casualness. Andrew sat silently beside him, picking at his food. "Everything okay?" Frank asked quietly. Andrew glanced up, then over at his mother before leaning closer. "Mom's been talking to someone late at night again. I heard her laughing." Frank's hand tightened on his glass. "When?" "Last 3 nights. After you went to bed." Andrew pushed a piece of chicken around his plate. "She goes out to the porch. I can hear her from my window." Frank nodded, keeping his face neutral despite the anger simmering beneath. "Thanks for telling me, son. Are you going to ask her about it?" Frank considered the question. "Not yet. Let's get through this weekend first." Andrew seemed to accept this, though his shoulders remained tense. Frank wanted to reassure him, but didn't want to make promises he couldn't keep. Instead, he bumped his shoulder gently against his son's, their silent code, since Andrew was small. "I'm here. We're okay." The tension eased slightly from Andrew's face. Later, as guests mingled around the estate grounds, Frank found himself alone on the terrace. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses drifted up from the garden below. He checked his watch, only 8 o'clock. The night stretched ahead endlessly. "There you are." Monica's voice carried an edge despite her smile. Why are you hiding up here? My father was looking for you. Frank turned to face her. Just getting some air. Monica stepped closer, her perfume too strong, too sweet, filling the space between them. This is my sister's wedding, Frank. I need you to make an effort. I'm here, aren't I? He kept his voice even. Being here isn't enough. You need to engage, talk to people. She smoothed his lapel in a gesture that might have seemed affectionate to observers, but felt possessive to Frank. These connections matter. Frank caught her wrist gently. To you, maybe? A flash of irritation crossed her face before she recovered. Don't start this again. My family has been nothing but generous to you. Your family has made sure I know exactly where I stand with them from day one. Frank released her wrist. I'm a carpenter from the wrong side of town who somehow trapped their golden daughter. That's not fair, isn't it? Frank looked her in the eyes. Where were you for the last 20 minutes? The question caught her off guard. Mingling, talking to Jessa about last-minute details. With Thatcher Garvin. Monica's smile froze. He's the best man. Of course I spoke with him. Frank nodded slowly. Of course. She recovered quickly, her voice dropping to a hiss. Don't cause a scene. Not here. Not my sister's wedding. I never cause scenes, Monica. That's your department. She turned to leave, then paused. Find Andrew and make sure he's presentable for dinner. And for God's sake, tell him to smile. He's been moping around all day. Frank watched her go, her back straight, head high, not a hair out of place. Perfect on the outside. He thought about Andrew's words. Late-night phone calls. Laughter in the darkness. The pieces were aligning, but Frank needed to be certain before he made his move. He found Andrew sitting alone at an empty table, scrolling through his phone. Hey, buddy. Frank sat beside him. You hanging in there? Andrew shrugged. I guess. Your mom wants you to smile more. This earned a snort. Of course she does. Frank studied his son's profile, so serious for 14. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? Andrew looked up, his eyes suddenly intense. Can I? Even if it's about Mom? Frank nodded. Especially then. Andrew seemed to consider this, weighing something in his mind. Finally, he said, I think Mom's planning something. She's been on her computer a lot, but she always closes it when I come in the room. And she's been talking to Aunt Jess's fiancé's brother a lot. Thatcher. Yeah, they think no one notices, but I do. Andrew's voice was quiet but firm. She's different when she's around him. Like, happier, but fake happy. Frank absorbed this, pride and worry mixing as he realized how observant his son had become. I've noticed too. Are you guys getting divorced? The question was blunt, but Frank could hear the fear behind it. I don't know what's happening yet, Frank answered honestly. But whatever happens, you and me were solid. Got it. Andrew nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Got it. Come on. Let's go pretend to be social for another hour. Then we'll escape back to the hotel. As they walked back toward the crowd, Frank caught sight of Monica and Thatcher standing close together near the rose garden, their heads bent in conversation. When Monica saw Frank and Andrew approaching, she immediately stepped away, laughing too loudly at something Raya Cullen was saying nearby. The pieces continued to fall into place. The morning of the wedding brought chaos to the Landry estate. Frank woke early in their hotel room, Monica's side of the bed already empty. She'd left a note saying she'd gone to help Jessa prepare. Frank let Andrew sleep in while he showered and dressed, his mind working through scenarios and possibilities that by the time they arrived at the estate, people were rushing in every direction. Flower arrangements were being adjusted, photographers were setting up, and the wedding planner was shouting into her headset. There you are. Monica appeared, already dressed in her pale, blue maid of honor gown. Why are you so late? The photographer wants family photos in 20 minutes. We're 2 hours early, Frank pointed out. Monica ignored this. Andrew, go wait in the groom's family room. The other kids are there. Frank, my father wants to see you about something. Before either could respond, Monica was pulled away by the wedding planner. Frank turned to Andrew. You okay with that plan? Andrew shrugged. I guess. I'll find you in a bit, Frank promised. As the morning progressed, Frank found himself shuttled from one obligation to another. Photos, greetings, Small talk with Monica's relatives who barely disguised their disdain. He kept an eye out for Andrew, spotting him occasionally looking uncomfortable among the other teenagers. He also noticed Monica and Thatcher always managing to be in the same room, exchanging glances, standing too close during conversations. Nothing obvious enough to call out, but the pattern was clear to Frank's watchful eye. Then, an hour before the ceremony, the screaming started. Frank was in the main house when he heard it Jess's voice, high and panicked. He followed the sound to the bridal suite, where he found a crowd gathering. "It's gone. My grandmother's ring is gone." Jessa was in tears, her wedding dress half-fastened, makeup running down her face. "It was right here on the vanity." Monica was at her sister's side, arm around her shoulders. "We'll find it, Jess. It has to be here somewhere." "Who was in here?" Jess's mother demanded, scanning the room. Raya spoke up. "I saw Andrew come out of this hallway earlier." All eyes turned to the doorway, where Andrew now stood, confusion on his face. "Were you in here?" Monica's voice cut through the room, sharp as a blade. Andrew blinked. "No, I was just passing by to get to the bathroom." "Don't lie." Monica stepped toward him, her face flushing. "I told you to stay in the groom's family room." "I wasn't in here," Andrew insisted, shrinking back. "I didn't take anything." "The ring is worth $20,000, Jess's mother said coldly. "If someone took it, check his pockets," someone suggested. Frank stepped forward. "Hold on." But before he could intervene, Monica crossed the room in 3 quick strides and slapped Andrew hard across the face. The sound cracked through the silence. "What did you do with it?" she demanded, at Andrew's eyes filled with tears, his cheek reddening from the blow. The room went deadly silent. Dozens of eyes watched as the boy raised a trembling hand to his face. "It wasn't me," he whispered, his voice breaking. Then, slowly, deliberately, he raised his other hand and pointed. Everyone followed his gesture to Monica's designer purse sitting on a side table. For a moment, no one moved. Then Noelle stepped forward, her face hard with anger. She reached for the purse. "Don't you dare touch my things," Monica snapped. Noelle ignored her, opening the clasp. She reached inside and pulled out a diamond-encrusted antique ring. Gasps filled the room. Monica's face drained of color. That's not possible," she stammered. "I didn't. Someone must have put it there." Frank stepped to Andrew's side, placing a protective arm around his shoulders. He looked directly at Monica, his voice low and dangerous. "We'll talk later." The wedding proceeded, despite the morning's drama. Jessa wore her grandmother's ring, though her smile seemed forced. Monica played her role as maid of honor, though whispers followed her throughout the day. Frank sat stone-faced through the ceremony, Andrew silent beside him. Noelle found them during the reception, slipping into an empty chair at their table. "You okay, kid?" she asked. Andrew nodded, though the red mark on his cheek had only partially faded. "Your mother's putting on quite a show," Noelle observed, nodding toward Monica, who was laughing with a group of guests as if nothing had happened. "She always does," Frank replied. The 3 of them sat in comfortable silence for a moment, united in their understanding. "What are you going to do?" Noelle finally asked, her voice low. Frank watched Monica across the room, calculating. "Get answers." The drive back to the hotel that night was silent. Andrew fell asleep in the back seat, exhaustion finally claiming him. Monica stared out the passenger window, her perfect posture betraying her tension. "Andrew, wake up." "We're here," Frank said gently when they arrived. In their suite, Andrew disappeared into his adjoining room without a word. Frank waited until the door closed before turning to Monica. "We need to talk." Monica was already removing her jewelry, her movements precise. "If this is about this morning, it was a misunderstanding. I don't know how that ring got in my purse." "In the bedroom," Frank said quietly. "Now." Something in his tone made her comply. Once inside, Frank closed the door and locked it. "What happened today?" he asked, his voice controlled, that Monica's demeanor shifted, her society smile vanishing. "What happened is that your son has been acting out for months, and today he decided to humiliate me in front of my entire family by putting your sister's ring in your purse." Frank's eyebrow rose. "That seems unlikely." He's always been jealous of my relationship with Jessa, Monica countered, unzipping her dress. He did this to embarrass me. You slapped him. He lied to my face. Frank stepped closer. Security cameras, Monica. The Landrys have them all over that house. If Andrew took that ring, there will be footage. Something flickered in Monica's eyes, fear quickly masked. Fine. Check the footage. You'll see. I intend to. Frank maintained eye contact. But here's what I think happened. I think you took that ring. I think you planned to blame our son. What I don't understand is why. Monica's face hardened. You're always quiet, always judging. You've never fit in with my family, and now Andrew is turning out just like you, awkward and asocial, always watching from corners. I was just trying to help Jessa. Andrew lies all the time. No, Frank said simply. He doesn't. You don't see it because you're never home. You're always at your little wood shop, playing with your tools while I'm raising our son. Frank didn't take the bait. Is that why you've been talking to Thatcher Garvin? Because I'm not home enough? Monica's eyes widened slightly before she recovered. Don't be ridiculous. He's Chase's brother. We've been planning wedding details. At midnight? On our porch. Monica froze. After a moment, she laughed bitterly. So Andrew's been spying on me. Perfect. Like father, like son. Why did you take the ring, Monica? She turned away, moving to her vanity. This conversation is over. I'm tired and you're being paranoid. Frank watched her for a moment, then nodded. Get some sleep. We'll talk more tomorrow. As he left the bedroom, he caught Monica's reflection in the mirror. The mask had slipped, revealing a calculating coldness that confirmed everything he needed to know. In the living room of their suite, Frank pulled out his phone and texted Noelle. I need security footage from the Landry house. Today, in the last few months. Her reply came quickly. On it. Be careful, brother. Frank sank onto the couch, his mind racing. If Monica had taken the ring to frame Andrew, what else was she capable of? What was she planning? Andrew's door opened slightly. Dad! Hey, buddy. Thought you were asleep. Andrew stepped out, still in his suit pants and undershirt. Is everything okay? Frank considered lying, then decided against it. No, but it will be. I promise you that. Andrew nodded, seeming to age years in that moment. I didn't take the ring. I know. Mom did. I saw her go into Aunt Jess's room earlier. She didn't see me. Frank's chest tightened with a mix of pride and sadness. His son shouldn't have to deal with this kind of betrayal. Why didn't you say something? Andrew looked down. I didn't think anyone would believe me over her. Frank stood and crossed to his son, placing both hands on his shoulders. I will always believe you. Always. What happened today, her hitting you, that will never happen again. You understand me? Andrew nodded, relief washing over his face. Get some sleep. We got a long drive home tomorrow. As Andrew returned to his room, Frank pulled out his phone again and opened his banking app. Time to start moving assets. Whatever Monica was planning, Frank was going to be ready. Frank rose early the next morning, leaving Monica still asleep in their bed. He packed their bags quietly, texted Noelle to check on her progress with the security footage, and then woke Andrew. They were on the road by 7, Monica silently fuming in the passenger seat. We were supposed to have brunch with my parents, she said after 20 miles of silence. Called and canceled, Frank replied, eyes on the road. Told them Andrew wasn't feeling well. Monica turned to the window, arms crossed tightly over her chest. The 3-hour drive to their home in Ashton Hollow passed in tense silence. Andrew had his earbuds in, lost in his own world in the back seat. Monica checked her phone constantly, typing rapid messages that she angled away from Frank's view. Their house sat on the outskirts of town, a sprawling craftsman-style home that Frank had partially built himself. Not as grand as the Landry estate, but comfortable, solid. His pride and joy once, as soon as they arrived. Monica disappeared upstairs with her luggage. Andrew helped Frank unload the car. Want to come to the workshop with me? Frank asked. His custom carpentry shop sat behind the house, a large converted barn where he spent most of his days. Andrew nodded eagerly. Can I work on my box project? Sure thing. The workshop smelled of sawdust and varnish, honest smells that had always centered Frank. He watched as Andrew pulled out the small jewelry box he'd been crafting, the boy's fingers already skilled with tools despite his age. Dad, Andrew kept his eyes on his work. What happens now? Frank measured his words carefully. Now I figure out exactly what's going on. Then we make a plan. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Frank didn't insult his son with platitudes. It's looking that way. Andrew nodded, seeming almost relieved. Good. She makes you sad. The simple observation hit Frank hard. He'd thought he'd hidden his unhappiness better. What about you? He asked. How do you feel about that possibility? Andrew considered this, sanding a corner of his box with focused precision. I'd rather live with you. That's the plan, Frank assured him. They worked in companionable silence for an hour before Monica appeared at the workshop door. Andrew, go inside and unpack, she ordered. I need to speak with your father. Andrew looked to Frank, who nodded. Go ahead, son. I'll be in soon. Once Andrew was gone, Monica stepped fully into the workshop, looking out of place in her designer clothes. What do you think you're doing? She demanded. Frank set down his tools. Being direct for once. What are you planning, Monica? She laughed, the sound brittle. Planning? I'm not planning anything except trying to salvage what's left of my sister's wedding weekend after our son's little stunt. Stop lying. Frank's voice remained calm. The ring was in your purse. You slapped our son in front of 24 witnesses. I want to know why. Monica's mask slipped, her face hardening. You think you know everything, don't you? Sitting back, watching, judging. Never saying what you think until it's too late. I'm saying it now. Well, it is too late. She stepped closer. You were never right for me, Frank. My parents knew it from the start. Everyone warned me that you'd hold me back, and they were right. I could have been something more than just a carpenter's wife in this backwater town. No one forced you to stay, Frank pointed out. Door's always been right there. And leave everything I've built? My standing in this community? My home? She shook her head. No. If anyone's leaving, it's you. Frank almost smiled at her audacity. That's what this is about. You want me gone so you can keep the house, the lifestyle? What about Andrew? He'll adjust, Monica said dismissively. Children are adaptable. Is Thatcher Garvin part of this plan? Her eyes flickered with surprise before she recovered. Don't be absurd. Thatcher is a family friend. A family friend you meet on our porch at midnight. Frank raised an eyebrow. A family friend you were kissing behind the Landry rose garden? Her face paled slightly. You're imagining things. Am I? Guess we'll see what the security footage shows. What security footage? Her voice rose slightly. The Landrys have cameras all over their property. You didn't notice them? They monitor everything, including the rose garden. Monica's composure cracked further. You're bluffing. Frank didn't respond, just held her gaze steadily. Even if there was something, she finally said, no judge would care. This is about Andrew. After that violent outburst yesterday. Violent outburst? Frank's voice hardened. You slapped him. He was aggressive, unstable, just like his father. Monica's voice took on a rehearsed quality. I've been documenting his concerning behaviors for months. And yours? The late nights, the drinking, the controlling behavior, isolating us from my family. Understanding dawned. You've been building a case. For custody. Her smile was cold. Smart man. Always were, under that simple exterior. It won't work, Frank said with certainty. It already is working. Why do you think I took that ring? Everyone saw how he reacted, pointing fingers, making wild accusations. My family witnessed his instability firsthand, and the dozens of people who saw you slap him. Monica waved this away. A mother's desperate reaction to a troubling situation. My lawyer assures me that with my family's standing and the documentation I've gathered, I'll get full custody. You'll get supervised visitation, if you're lucky. Frank felt cold fury building, but kept his voice even. You've thought of everything. I always do. She turned to leave, then looked back. Don't make this messier than it needs to be, Frank. Accept that you've lost, and maybe we can work out something amicable. After she left, Frank stood motionless in his workshop, mind racing. The pieces had all fallen into place: the midnight calls, the missing ring, the slap, the accusations. Monica had been planning this for months, maybe longer. His phone buzzed with a text from Noelle. Got the footage. It's worse than we thought. Come to my place tonight. Alone. Frank picked up a piece of oak he'd been saving for a special project and ran his fingers over the grain. He'd built his life from nothing once before. He could do it again if necessary. But he'd be damned if he'd let Monica take his son. That night, after a tense dinner where Monica acted as if nothing had happened, Frank told her he was going to check on a client's emergency repair. At 9 o'clock, she questioned, eyebrow raised. "Rich people and their emergencies," he said with a shrug. "The Petersons' kitchen island cracked. They're hosting some charity thing tomorrow." The lie came easily, which bothered Frank. He'd always prided himself on his honesty. "Don't wait up," he added, grabbing his keys. Noelle lived above her bar on the other side of town, in a small but comfortable apartment that smelled perpetually of the fried food served downstairs. She opened the door before he could knock. "You look like hell," she observed. "Feel worse." Inside, Noelle had her laptop open on the coffee table. "I had to call in some favors with Jake," she explained. Jake Marshall was Ashton Hollow's only IT specialist and had installed the security system at the Landry estate. "He owed me after I kept his tab off the books last hunting season." "What did you find?" Frank sank onto her couch. "First, you need a drink." Noelle handed him a glass of bourbon. "Trust me." Frank took a long sip, letting the burn steady him. Noelle sat beside him and opened a video file. "This is from yesterday morning, about an hour before all hell broke loose." The footage showed a hallway in the Landry house. After a moment, Monica appeared, looking carefully in both directions before slipping into a room. "That's Jess's suite," Frank noted. Monica emerged less than a minute later, her hand going briefly to her purse before she walked briskly away. "So she did take it," Frank said, though he'd already known. "That's just the appetizer." Noelle queued up another clip. "This is from the Rose Garden. 2 days ago, during the rehearsal." Frank watched as Monica and Thatcher appeared on screen, walking close together between the hedges. They stopped in a secluded corner, and Thatcher pulled Monica into his arms. The kiss was passionate, familiar, not a first encounter. "There's more." Noelle's voice was gentle. "From the last 3 months. They've been meeting at the Pinewood Motel outside of town. Jake's cousin works there, recognized Monica from her photo in the society pages when the Landrys donated to the hospital." Frank's stomach clenched. He'd suspected, but seeing it confirmed still felt like a physical blow. "Want me to show you those two?" He shook his head. "No, I've seen enough." Noelle closed the laptop. "What are you going to do?" Frank drained his glass. "She's planning to divorce me, take full custody of Andrew, and probably most of our assets. She's been documenting concerning behaviors to build a case." "That bitch," Noelle growled. "She's methodical," Frank acknowledged. "Always has been. She's thought this through." "So what's the plan? Please tell me you have one." Frank nodded slowly. "I'm going to let her think she's winning. For now. And then I'm going to make sure she loses everything." Noelle studied her brother's face. "You've changed, Frank. The old you would have just walked away. Let her take whatever she wanted as long as she left you alone." "The old me didn't have a son to protect," Frank replied. She slapped him, Noelle, in front of everyone, then tried to make him look unstable. Noelle's expression hardened. "What do you need from me?" "Copy all this footage. And I need a good lawyer, not anyone local. Someone who won't be intimidated by the Landry name. I know a guy in Jefferson City. Helped my friend Eileen when her ex tried something similar. Call him tomorrow." As Frank stood to leave, Noelle caught his arm. "Be careful, brother. Monica's dangerous when cornered." "So am I," Frank replied. "She just doesn't know it yet." Over the next 2 weeks, Frank maintained a careful facade at home. He was polite but distant with Monica, who seemed to interpret his behavior as resignation. She grew more confident, less careful about hiding her calls with Thatcher or her meetings with whoever was helping her prepare her case. Meanwhile, Frank methodically built his defense. He met with Noelle's lawyer contact, Martin Reeves, in Jefferson City. The man was sharp, experienced, and unimpressed by old money. "Family court isn't like other courts," Reeves explained in their first meeting. "It's not just about evidence, it's about narrative. Your wife is crafting a compelling story. Concerned mother, unstable father, troubled child. We need to dismantle that narrative piece by piece. I have video of her taking the ring and planting it in her own purse," Frank pointed out. "That's good. But if she's been documenting behaviors for months, we need more. Has she ever been violent with your son before?" Frank hesitated. "Not that I've seen. But Andrew's been withdrawing from her for years. We need to talk to him. Carefully, he's 14. I don't want him in the middle of this. Reeves leaned forward. Mr. Maddox, he's already in the middle of this. Your wife put him there when she slapped him and tried to frame him. The question now is whether we let her control the narrative about him, or whether we get the truth. Frank reluctantly agreed, and they set up a careful conversation with Andrew that weekend presented as casual, but recorded with Andrew's knowledge and consent. The boy's revelations were worse than Frank had feared. Monica had been belittling Andrew for years when Frank wasn't around, criticizing everything from his quiet nature to his interest in carpentry. The incident at the wedding wasn't the first time she'd struck him, just the first time she'd done it publicly. Why didn't you tell me? Frank asked after Reeves had left. Andrew shrugged, staring at his hands. She always said you wouldn't believe me, that you'd always take her side because that's what husbands do. Frank's heart broke. I would have believed you. Always. After that, Frank accelerated his plans. He updated his will, naming Noel as Andrew's guardian if anything happened to him. He moved their joint assets, strategically not hiding money, which would look suspicious, but protecting what he could legally move. He installed recording devices in the house, capturing Monica's phone conversations with Thatcher and, most damning, with her lawyer. We need to file before he realizes what's happening, she said during one call. The psychiatric evaluation needs to happen quickly. I've already laid the groundwork with Dr. Campbell. He understands these situations. I can have the papers ready by next Friday, her lawyer replied. But we need more on the boy's instability. I'm working on it, Monica assured him. I know exactly which buttons to push. Frank had the recordings transcribed and added to the growing file of evidence. Reeves was impressed. She's making mistakes, the lawyer noted. Getting careless. That's good for us. Frank continued playing his role at home, quiet, seemingly defeated, watching. He made sure to document every positive interaction with Andrew, building evidence of their strong relationship. He took Andrew to therapy with a respected child psychologist, creating legitimate documentation of Andrew's mental state stable but understandably stressed by his mother's behavior. One evening, as Frank worked late in his shop, Noel called. You need to hear this, she said without preamble. Raya Cullen came into the bar tonight, got wasted on martinis, and wouldn't shut up. About what? About Monica. She kept saying she knows everything and could blow it all sky high. I recorded some of it on my phone. Frank listened to the recording. Raya's voice was slurred but clear enough. You know, Monica's been planning to leave him for over a year, right? She told me once she was waiting for the right moment to make him look like an unfit father. She and Thatcher have it all worked out. Once the divorce is final, they're moving to Chicago. He's got some fancy job lined up. There's more, Noel said after Frank listened. She mentioned something about a foundation. Said Monica set it up to move money around through Jess's charity. Frank frowned. What charity? Jessa runs some arts program for kids. Got a big grant last year. Raya said Monica's been using it to clean something up. Sounded financial. Can you get Raya to talk to my lawyer? Already working on it. She hates Monica, always has. Just needed the right motivation to spill. After the call, Frank sat in his workshop, piecing together this new information. Monica wasn't just planning to leave him, she was potentially involved in financial fraud through her sister's charity. If true, that would destroy any leverage she had in custody proceedings. The next day, Frank contacted a forensic accountant recommended by Reeves. Within a week, they had uncovered evidence of suspicious transfers between the charity's accounts and a shell foundation Monica had established the previous year. It's textbook money laundering, the accountant explained. Not huge amounts, but consistent, enough to interest the IRS. Frank asked, more than enough. The final piece fell into place when Frank received an email from Thatcher Garvin's soon-to-be ex-wife in Boston, a woman he tracked down through social media and reached out to carefully.mr. Maddox, she wrote, I'm not surprised by your email. Thatcher has a pattern. He did the same to me, planned our divorce for over a year while seeing someone else. The someone else was your wife. I have emails dating back 18 months. I'm attaching them all. I hope they help you keep your son. Frank forwarded everything to Reeves, who called him immediately. This is it, the lawyer said. We have enough now. More than enough. What's the next step? Frank asked. We wait. Let her file first. Let her make the first move. Then we counterstrike with everything we have. Frank agreed to the strategy, though patience had never been his strong suit. The waiting would be the hardest part. A few days later, Frank found Andrew sitting on the back porch, staring out at the yard. He sat down beside his son, offering a can of soda. "Penny for your thoughts." Andrew accepted the drink, just thinking about what happens next. "What do you mean? With Mom?" Andrew's voice was quiet but steady. "I know she's going to leave. I heard her on the phone with someone, talking about Chicago." Frank sighed. He tried to shield Andrew from the worst of it, but the boy was too perceptive. "You're right. Your mom is planning to leave, and she's going to try to take you with her." Andrew's head snapped up. "No, I won't go." "It might not be that simple, buddy. There are legal things, custody arrangements. Can't I just tell the judge I want to stay with you? It helps, but it's not always the deciding factor." Frank put his arm around Andrew's shoulders. "But I'm fighting for you. I promise." Andrew leaned into his father's side. "I know. We're going to fix what's broken," Frank said firmly. "But not the way your mom wants." Andrew nodded, a quiet understanding passing between them. Later that night, Frank was in his workshop when he heard the back door slam. Monica appeared in the doorway, her face flushed with anger. "What did you say to Andrew?" she demanded. Frank set down his chisel. "About what?" "Don't play dumb. He just told me he's not moving to Chicago with me. Ever." Those were his exact words. Frank shrugged. "Sounds like he made up his mind. You've been poisoning him against me." Monica stepped further into the shop, pointing an accusing finger. "Turning my own son against me. The way I see it, you did that yourself when you slapped him and tried to frame him for theft." Her eyes narrowed. "So that's your game? Using one mistake to try to keep him from me." "It wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated move in your plan." Frank met her gaze steadily. "A plan I know all about." For a moment, uncertainty flickered across Monica's face. Then her mask slipped back into place. "You don't know anything. I know about Thatcher, the Pinewood Motel, the plans for Chicago." She recovered quickly. "So you know I'm seeing someone. That's hardly a secret now. Our marriage has been over for years. I also know about the foundation, the money moving through Jess's charity." This hit harder. Monica's face paled visibly. "You're making things up. The IRS doesn't think so." She took a step back. "You're bluffing. Try me." Frank set down his tools and faced her fully. "You can still walk away, Monica. File for divorce. Agree to joint custody with primary placement with me, and I'll keep what I know to myself." For a moment, it seemed like she might consider it. Then her expression hardened. "You've got nothing. And even if you did, no one would believe you over me. Not in this town." Frank nodded slowly. "That's your final answer then? I'm filing tomorrow. Expect papers by the end of the week." She turned to leave. "And Frank, when this is over, you won't even get visitation. That's a promise." As she walked away, Frank allowed himself a small, grim smile. Monica had just made her final mistake. The following Saturday, Ashton Hollow's annual summer festival filled the town square. Frank took Andrew, both needing a break from the tension at home. Monica had filed for divorce as promised, demanding full custody and making wild accusations about Frank's controlling and unstable behavior. Reeves had responded with a strategic counterfiling that revealed none of their evidence, yet just enough to establish Frank's position while keeping their full case concealed. "Dad, can I go check out the woodworking booth?" Andrew asked as they walked through the festival. "Sure. Meet me at Aunt Noel's bar in 20 minutes. Andrew nodded and disappeared into the crowd. Frank continued alone, nodding to townspeople he knew. News of the Maddox divorce filing had spread quickly in the small town, and Frank could feel the curious stares. He was examining a display of local honey when a voice called his name. Frank turned to find Raya Cullen approaching, wearing oversized sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "Frank, just the man I wanted to see." Her words had a slight slur despite the early hour. "Raya." Frank nodded politely. "How are you?" "Oh, surviving." She glanced around theatrically, then lowered her voice. "I hear Monica's really going for the jugular in this divorce." Frank kept his expression neutral. "I wouldn't know about that." "Please." Raya waved dismissively. "Everyone knows. She's telling anyone who'll listen about your concerning behaviors." She made air quotes with her fingers. Is that right? It's all bull, of course. Raya stepped closer, the smell of mimosas heavy on her breath. Monica's been planning this for ages. Thatcher too. That's so. Raya nodded eagerly, clearly enjoying being the bearer of insider information. She told me all about it last year at the country club charity auction. Said she was just waiting for the right moment to make you look bad. Needed the right? What did she call it? Inciting incident. Interesting. Frank kept his tone casual, though his mind was racing. You know what else? Raya leaned in conspiratorially. That foundation she set up, it's not even real. It's just a way to move money around through Jess's charity. Tax thing, I think. Very clever. Very illegal. Sounds like. Raya's eyes widened behind her sunglasses. Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Do you think? Raya, there you are. Monica's voice cut through their conversation. She approached quickly, her smile tight. I've been looking everywhere for you. The committee needs your input on the auction items. Raya straightened, suddenly awkward. Monica! Just catching up with Frank here. Monica's gaze darted between them, calculation visible behind her smile. How nice. Frank, I'm surprised to see you here. I thought you'd be meeting with your lawyer. Later today, Frank replied easily. Thought Andrew deserved some normal fun first. Monica's jaw tightened at the implied criticism. Where is he? Around. Being a normal kid. Raya, we really should go. Monica insisted, taking her friend's air. Monica steered Raya away. The woman looked back over her shoulder at Frank. Call me, she mouthed, making a phone gesture. Frank continued to the Rusty Nail, Noel's bar, which was doing a brisk business during the festival. He found her behind the counter, serving beers. You just missed the show, she said as he approached. What show? Raya cornered Monica by the ladies' room. I couldn't hear everything, but there was definitely some shouting about loyalty and secrets. Frank took the beer Noel offered. Raya's been talking to you just now at the honey stand. Confirmed everything, the planning, the foundation, all of it. Loud enough for half the town to hear. Noel grinned. Perfect timing. Monica's reputation is already taking hits. That slap didn't sit well with folks. Ellen Peterson told me she's been dropped from the library fundraising committee. Small victories, Frank acknowledged. Not so small in a town this size, Noel pointed out. Social standing matters to Monica more than anything. Losing it is her worst nightmare. Andrew appeared, squeezing through the crowd to reach them. Dad, I found that guy who makes those inlay patterns you like. He showed me how to do it. Frank smiled, his first genuine one in days. That's great, buddy. Want to try on your box project? Andrew nodded enthusiastically. For a moment, it felt almost normal, just a father and son sharing a passion, planning projects. Then Frank's phone buzzed with a text from Reeves. Monica's lawyer reached out. Wants to discuss terms. We got them worried. Frank showed Noel the message. Her smile was fierce. The beginning of the end, she said quietly. Not yet, Frank replied. But soon. 2 weeks later, Frank stood in his kitchen preparing for the most important dinner of his life. Despite the summer heat, he wore a crisp button-down and had spent the morning cleaning the house to perfection. Andrew helped, understanding without explanation the significance of the night ahead. Are you sure this will work? Andrew asked as he arranged water glasses on the dining table. Frank checked the roast in the oven. No, but it's our best shot. What if she doesn't bring everyone? She will. Your mother never could resist an audience. The plan had come together after Monica's lawyer's attempt to negotiate had failed. Frank and Reeves had refused their initial offer joint custody with primary placement with Monica without revealing their evidence. This had made Monica nervous enough to attempt reconciliation, or at least the appearance of it. When Frank suggested a family dinner to discuss things civilly for Andrew's sake, Monica had immediately expanded the invitation to include her parents, Jessa, Chase, Raya, and most tellingly Thatcher, who was supposedly in town on business. Exactly as Frank had predicted. Dad, Andrew's voice pulled Frank from his thoughts. Whatever happens tonight, I'm glad you're my father. Frank pulled his son into a tight hug. And I'm proud to be your father. No matter what. The doorbell rang at precisely 6 o'clock. Monica's parents, the Landrys, Arrived first, her father stern and uncomfortable, her mother coolly polite. Jessa came next, notably without chase, her expression pinched and unhappy. Raya slipped in shortly after, avoiding Monica's gaze. Monica herself arrived last, with Thatcher Garvin in tow, as if presenting them as a couple was the most natural thing in the world. "Frank," she said coolly, brushing his cheek with a kiss for show. "So good of you to do this." "Wouldn't miss it," he replied. "Andrew, why don't you help me bring out the appetizers?" In the kitchen, Andrew whispered, "She brought him to our house." "It's what I expected," Frank assured him. "Remember the plan? Let me handle everything. If it gets too uncomfortable, you can go to your room anytime." Andrew squared his shoulders. "I'm staying." The dining room atmosphere was strained as everyone took their places. Monica sat at the opposite end of the table from Frank, with Thatcher at her right hand, a queen, and her consort. Her parents flanked her other side, with Jessa beside them. Raya sat awkwardly in the middle, while Andrew took the chair to Frank's right. "I think we all know why we're here," Monica began once everyone was served. "Frank and I have been having some difficulties, and while we're working through the legal aspects, we wanted to come together as a family." Frank noted how she emphasized legal aspects while giving him a pointed look. "Yes," he agreed mildly. "Family is important." Monica launched into what was clearly a prepared speech about difficult transitions and putting Andrew's needs first. Her parents nodded approvingly, though her father kept glancing uncomfortably at Thatcher. "The important thing," Monica concluded, "is that we all support each other through this process." "Support," Frank repeated, taking a sip of water. "Interesting choice of word." Monica's eyes narrowed slightly. "What do you mean?" "Just that support looks different to different people." Frank set down his glass carefully. "For instance, some might think support means not slapping your child in public, or not trying to frame him for theft." The table went silent. Mr. Landry's fork froze halfway to his mouth. "That was a misunderstanding," Monica said tightly. "As I've explained repeatedly." "A misunderstanding," Frank echoed. "Like your foundation? The one funneling money through Jess's charity?" Jess's head snapped up. "What?" "Frank, this is hardly appropriate dinner conversation," Mrs. Landry interjected. "Actually, I think it's exactly the right conversation." Frank stood slowly. "Before we wrap this night up, there's something I want to show you all." He moved to the entertainment center and pressed a button on the remote. The large television screen came to life, displaying the security footage from the Landry estate. Without comment, Frank played the clip of Monica taking the ring, then the one of her slapping Andrew, followed by her kissing Thatcher in the rose garden. The room was deadly silent as the footage played. When it ended, Frank switched to audio recordings Monica discussing her plans with her lawyer, with Thatcher, with Raya. "Turn that off," Monica demanded, her voice shaking. Frank obliged. "There's more, much more, but I think we all get the picture." Monica's mask finally shattered completely. Her face contorted with fury as she stood, pointing at Frank. "You think you're so clever? Recording private conversations? That's illegal. I'll have you arrested." "One-party consent state," Frank replied calmly. "I was party to those conversations in my home. Perfectly legal. The security footage then? You stole that." "Actually," Frank said, "your father gave me access." He nodded to Mr. Landry. "Thank you for that, sir." All eyes turned to Monica's father, who looked grim. "I wanted the truth, Monica. About the ring. About your behavior." Frank came to me man to man, and I respected that. Monica's face paled. "Daddy, you can't believe. I saw it with my own eyes," her father interrupted. "Just like everyone else in this room." Jessa stood, her eyes filled with tears. "How could you, Monica? My charity? Children depend on those programs." "It's not what it looks like," Monica insisted. "It's exactly what it looks like," Raya said, finding her voice. "You told me all about it. How clever you were, setting it all up." Monica turned on her, hissing, "Shut up, Raya." "No, I don't think I will." Raya straightened in her chair. "I've kept your secrets for years. Covered for you with Thatcher. Listened to you plot against your own husband and son. I'm done." Thatcher stood abruptly. "I should go." "Sit down," Frank ordered, his voice suddenly hard. "You're as much a part of this as she is." To everyone's surprise, Thatcher obeyed, sinking back into his chair. What do you want, Frank? Monica asked, her voice cold. Money? The house. I want custody of my son, Frank answered simply. Full custody, and I want you to stop trying to destroy him to get what you want. That's absurd. I would never hurt Andrew. You slapped me, Andrew said quietly, speaking for the first time. All eyes turned to him. You've always hurt me, Mom. Not always hitting, but the way you talk to me when Dad's not around. The things you say about me. About him. Monica's face flushed. That's not true. Andrew, tell them that's not true. Andrew held her gaze steadily. It is true, and I'm not lying anymore to make you happy. Something in Monica seemed to snap. She grabbed her water glass and hurled it against the wall, where it shattered. You think you're smart? She hissed at Frank. I'll ruin you anyway. I have friends you don't even know about. Judges. Police. You're nothing in this town without me. Frank remained calm. Try it. The bank accounts are frozen. The lawyer has the tapes. You won't get custody. He paused. And guess what? That fake foundation you set up to launder money through Jess's charity? Yeah, already sent to the IRS. The color drained from Monica's face. You're bluffing. The IRS doesn't bluff, Monica. Neither does the state prosecutor. Frank glanced at his watch. They're probably going through your office files right now. Monica lunged toward Frank, but her father caught her arm. Enough, Monica. You've done enough damage. Let me go, she screamed, struggling. He's lying. I saw the foundation paperwork, her father said grimly. Frank showed me everything before I agreed to come tonight. It's all true. You knew. Monica stared at her father in shock. And you still came? To humiliate me. I came hoping it wasn't true, he replied. Hoping my daughter wasn't capable of this. Monica wrenched her arm free and turned to Thatcher. Tell them we had a plan. Thatcher stood, straightening his jacket. I think I should speak with my lawyer. Coward. Monica spat. After everything I did for you. Monica, Mrs. Landry said sharply, control yourself. Control myself? Monica laughed bitterly. That's rich, Mother. All my life, it's been control yourself, Monica. Be perfect, Monica. Don't embarrass the family, Monica. Well, guess what? I'm done controlling myself. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door, then turned back. This isn't over, Frank. Not by a long shot. After she left, the room remained silent for several long moments. Finally, Mr. Landry cleared his throat. Frank, we had no idea. I know. Frank nodded respectfully. She hit it well. Jessa was quietly crying. My charity will have to close. Not necessarily, Frank said. My lawyer can put you in touch with people who can help sort it out. It's not your fault. One by one, the guests made awkward exits. Thatcher practically ran to his car. The Landrys left with promises to make this right somehow. Jessa hugged Andrew tightly before leaving, whispering apologies in his ear. Raya was the last to go. At the door, she paused. I should have said something sooner. I was afraid of her, I guess. We all were, in different ways, Frank acknowledged. After everyone had gone, Frank and Andrew stood in the empty dining room, surveying the abandoned plates and half-eaten food. Is it really over? Andrew asked. Frank put his arm around his son's shoulders. The worst part is, the rest will take time. Legal proceedings. Probably some more drama. But she won't get custody. No, Frank said firmly. She won't. Not after tonight. They began clearing the table together, working in companionable silence. When Andrew carried a stack of plates to the kitchen, Frank took a moment to send a text to Reeves. It's done. Exactly as planned. The reply came quickly. Warrant served on her office an hour ago. Foundation records seized. It's over. She's finished. Frank allowed himself a small, grim smile of satisfaction. Monica had taught him an important lesson. Sometimes quiet wasn't enough. Sometimes you had to fight back not with shouting and violence, but with patience, planning, and the unassailable power of truth. The weeks that followed unfolded exactly as Frank had anticipated. Monica retreated to her parents' guest house, her reputation in Ashton Hollow shattered beyond repair. The IRS investigation into her foundation revealed systematic fraud spanning 2 years money laundering disguised as charitable contributions. Jess's charity was cleared of wrongdoing after a thorough audit, though the scandal temporarily suspended its operations. Chase broke off their engagement when the full extent of Monica's manipulation came to light. Unable to trust that any part of their relationship had been genuine, Frank and Andrew settled into a new routine at home. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, with Monica's lawyer scrambling to salvage whatever he could from the wreckage of her case. She dropped the custody claim entirely after Frank's evidence was formally submitted to the court that on a warm Saturday in August, Frank sat on the back porch watching Andrew practice with the lathe in the workshop. Noelle arrived with sandwiches and cold drinks, settling into the chair beside him. "Heard the news?" she asked. "What news?" "Monica's moving. To Dallas, apparently. Her parents bought her a condo and a consulting position at some friend's company." Frank nodded, unsurprised. "Getting her out of town before the foundation case goes public. Smart move. You okay with that? Her getting away so clean?" Frank considered the question. "She's not getting away clean. She lost Andrew, her reputation, her standing in the community, her sister. That's enough for me. And Thatcher, back to Boston." His wife took him back, apparently. Poor woman. They watched Andrew through the workshop window, his face set in concentration as he shaped a piece of wood. "He's doing better," Noelle observed. "Every day," Frank agreed. "Started talking about trying out for the school play next month. Never would have done that before. Kids are resilient, more than we give them credit for." Noelle took a sip of her drink. "And what about you? How are you doing, really?" Frank thought about the question before answering. "Better than expected. There are still moments when I think about how long she was planning it, how I missed the signs. But mostly, I'm just looking forward." "To what?" He gestured toward Andrew. "To watching him grow up without her shadow hanging over him. To building things that last." Speaking of building, Noelle said, "What's this I hear about you buying the old Jefferson property?" Frank smiled slightly. "The lake house? Been thinking about it. Needs a complete restoration. Good project for Andrew and me. For living or working. Both, maybe. The workshop there's bigger than mine. And the view of the lake, can't beat it." Noelle nudged his shoulder. "Look at you. Making plans. One day at a time," Frank replied, but there was conviction in his voice that had been missing for years. Later that afternoon, Frank drove to the lake to look at the property again. Andrew came along, bringing his sketch pad to draw ideas for the renovation. The old Jefferson Lake House stood on a private stretch of shoreline, its weathered boards and sagging porch belying the solid foundation beneath. It had been vacant for 5 years, ever since Old Man Jefferson passed away, his children too scattered across the country to care about the family vacation home. Frank walked the perimeter, assessing the work needed. New roof, replaced siding, probably new plumbing throughout. A major project, exactly what he needed. "We could expand the deck around that side," Andrew suggested, pointing toward the water. "Make it wrap around so you can see the sunset." "Good idea," Frank agreed. "Maybe add a fire pit down by the water, too." They spent an hour exploring, making plans, imagining possibilities. As the sun began to set, they sat on the rickety dock, feet dangling above the water. "Dad," Andrew said after a comfortable silence, "can I ask you something? Anything. Did you know? About Mom, I mean, before everything happened." Frank measured his response carefully. "I knew something wasn't right. Had suspicions about her and Thatcher. But the extent of it? No. I didn't want to believe anyone could be that calculating." Andrew nodded, processing this. "But you were collecting evidence. Noelle said you'd known for 2 years." "That's partially true," Frank admitted. "I started paying attention, keeping track of things that didn't add up. But I didn't have a plan until she slapped you at the wedding. That was the moment everything changed. Because of me, because no one gets to hurt my son." Frank's voice was quiet but firm. Not even his mother. Andrew leaned against his father's shoulder. "I'm glad we caught her, before she could take me away." "She never would have," Frank assured him. "I would have found you, wherever she took you." They watched the sunset paint the lake in gold and crimson. A chapter ending, a new one beginning. "We should make an offer on this place," Frank decided. "Tomorrow." "Really?" Andrew's face brightened. "Really? Time for a fresh start, don't you think?" 3 months later, On a crisp October morning, Frank stood on the newly rebuilt deck of the lake house, coffee mug in hand, watching the mist rise from the water. The renovation was well underway, roof replaced, exterior restored, interior gutted, and being rebuilt room by room. Andrew had started high school in September and, to Frank's pleasure and surprise, had joined both the drama club and the woodworking group. He was making friends, smiling more, standing taller. The divorce had been finalized the previous week. Monica received a financial settlement far smaller than she'd initially demanded, and no custody rights to Andrew, only limited supervised visitation that she had yet to exercise. The IRS investigation continued, but Monica's parents' connections had helped her avoid criminal charges so far, settling instead for substantial penalties and back taxes. Frank hadn't seen her since the night of the dinner. She communicated only through lawyers now, her pride still too wounded for direct contact. That suited Frank fine. He had said everything he needed to say. The sound of tires on gravel announced Noelle's arrival. She appeared around the side of the house, carrying a bag of groceries. "Nice view," she called, climbing the steps to the deck. "Place is looking good." Getting there, Frank agreed. Kitchen still needs work. And the upstairs bathroom. All in good time. She handed him the grocery bag. "Brought supplies. Thought we could grill out tonight." Andrew invited some friends over after school. Frank raised an eyebrow. "He did. Called me yesterday. Asked if I could bring hamburger stuff. Said he wanted to show off the place." Something warm expanded in Frank's chest. "Good. That's good." They carried the groceries inside to the partially finished kitchen. New countertops were in place, but cabinet doors were still missing, their contents visible on the shelves. "Heard from Jesse yesterday," Noelle said as she unpacked the bag. "The charity's reopening next month. New board, new oversight procedures. She wanted to know if you'd consider joining." Frank looked surprised. "Me? Why? Because you're the guy who uncovered the fraud and then helped her clean up the mess? Because your carpentry skills could help with their building projects? Take your pick. I'll think about it," Frank promised. "Oh, and Rye stopped by the bar last night," Noelle continued. "Said Monica's parents are selling their house, moving to Arizona or somewhere. Cutting ties," Frank observed. "Smart move. This town won't forget what she did anytime soon." "No, they won't." Noelle hesitated, then added, "You know what people are saying about you now?" "What's that?" "That Frank Maddox is not a man to cross." She smiled slightly. "You've got a reputation now, brother. The quiet guy who took down the Landry princess without ever raising his voice." Frank shook his head, uncomfortable with the attention. "I just protected my son, and taught this town a valuable lesson in the process." Noelle squeezed his arm. "Speaking of lessons, you never told me how Andrew's doing in school." Frank's expression softened. "Straight A's in everything but math. Even got a part in the fall play, just a small role, but he's excited. No more quiet kid hiding in corners." "Oh, he's still quiet. But it's different now. Confident quiet, not scared quiet." They worked together preparing for the evening cookout. Frank found himself looking forward to the sound of teenage voices filling the lake house, to seeing Andrew show his friends around with pride. Later, when Noelle left to run errands before the gathering, Frank walked down to the lake's edge. The water was calm, reflecting the trees, autumn colors like a mirror. He picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the surface, watching the ripples spread. His phone buzzed with a text from Andrew. Bell rang early. "Jake's mom is dropping us off. Be there in 20. Can we use the canoe?" Frank smiled as he typed back, "Sure. Life jackets in the boathouse. See you soon." He pocketed his phone and looked out over the water again. In the distance, a fish jumped, breaking the surface with a small splash before disappearing again. Frank didn't just survive betrayal, he had made sure it never had the chance to rise again. And in doing so, he had built something stronger than before, a life where truth mattered, where loyalty was rewarded, where his son could grow up without fear. He turned back toward the house's house, his project, his future, and began walking up the path, ready to welcome his son home.